Hi everyone, this is Charles here from the Greater Man Challenge. I'm here with Jay Pyatt, who I actually connected with yesterday on LinkedIn via a post from the conversation I had with Steve Whittle from our charity partner, Tough to Talk. Now, Jay here, him and his wife, is that correct?
Yep.
Specialize in helping people with pornography addiction and their partners as well. Jay, could you tell us a little bit about sort of top line what your organization's called, what it is you do, and what the mission is?
Sure. Yeah, my wife Lori and I started the Couple Cure back in 2016. Um, our mission is to help the individual dealing with either pornography addiction or the spouse dealing with the fallout of, like in our case, I literally lied to Lori's face every night for 4 years. And so being lied to 1,000 times and not knowing reality has a damaging effect. And so Lori helps women get stable and decide whether or not they want to stay in the relationship. And I help men, break that addiction bondage piece, um, sometimes referred to as problematic porn use. So it may not be addiction level for some guys, but helping them get free of that, become the kind of men they want to be, develop new coping skills, because from my standpoint, um, pornography is the bandage on a wound. It's a way we've dealt with something going on deeper, other mental health issues, and it's a very easily found solution to a much deeper problem.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself. I have was exposed to pornography at a very young age. I remember a friend of mine coming into school when I was about 10 or 11 years old with some of his father's magazines. And then it obviously, for me, it was something that was in the home as well, albeit hidden away, but discovered by me. And then with the advent of the internet and everything, and nowadays, obviously, it's an endemic. And, I go through patches where I can not view it for a couple of months, and then suddenly I get sucked back into it, which is obviously because I'm being triggered by something, and will watch it what I consider to be, an unhealthy amount. I mean, perhaps at all is an unhealthy amount, but what feels like, as you say, a band-aid, a plaster for the Brits watching, um, as a sort of moving away from and the pain that's underneath. I mean, could you tell us a bit about your story when you were first exposed to pornography and what that sort of cycle of use, abuse, addiction looked like?
Yeah. So I was a little bit younger than you. I was exploring the house that I lived in, and I found magazines in my father's desk, and you know, had no idea what I was looking at. I was 5 years old.
Wow.
So for a 5 year old, I wasn't seeing something sexual. I was seeing something uh, maternal. This is one of the hard parts of this for me, is recognizing I wasn't looking for a better girlfriend. I was looking for a better mom, because I wanted someone who was feminine and present and nurturing, right? I mean, to some degree, a naked woman is nurturing. But that was very confused with, the reaction within my body. And that process continued, um, whether it was pure pornography or magazines or anything else that I could find. And one of the biggest problems with this, Charles, was I knew right away I had a secret. I had something that I could not talk to anybody about. And uh, as time went on, became sexually active as a teenager, um, went to college. None of this ever made porn less accessible. Um, and late in college, when I was 22, 21, 22, university for the Brits. So, um, I'll try to do my best American to English translating as I can. Uh, you guys keep messing up our language, so
Hey.
um, anyway, in college, I met my first wife. We got married about 2 years after I graduated, and we were married for all of 22 months because, I, all of the other unhealthy parts of my life led to expectations of her, expectations that I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't have any clue that they were going on. And so I just got angry. I got so angry about things that she wasn't, doing the right way or showing up the right way. And the porn, made me think, well, there's a way she should show up and she's not. And that was a problem. And so she came to me and said I wanted a divorce, and I said fine, and that was over. Um, my background is computer science, so when before the internet even came online, I had a modem, I had a computer, I was, out trying to find porn in all the little nooks and crannies before the internet became mainstream. And that's when I began to recognize I had a problem was 93, 94. And Lori and I met late 94, and I told her I had a problem. And she said, well, if you're willing to talk about it, and if you think a healthy sexual relationship will fix it, we can move ahead. And so we got married within 6 months of our first date. Yeah. Um, and within 6 months of our wedding date, both of us came to realize I didn't want to talk about it, and it had nothing to do with sex. And so we had, for the first 5 years of our marriage, pretty bad interactions. That anger was still there. I one night we were in a fight and I knocked Lori to the floor. I'm 6'2" and 200 plus pounds, and she's not. And so I'm not only a porn addict, I'm an abuser. And that same anger was there, all these expectations that were going unmet. And again, not having the understanding of all of what was going on underneath that, the pornography was still the bandage, and marriage, being married to somebody and the intensity of that relationship only made things much more volatile for what was going on inside of me. Um, so then I had a decent period of sobriety between 2000 and somewhere in 2006. And in 2006, a bunch of things, or 2005, 2006. But 2006, I was on my own a lot because I was traveling for work. And I'm a computer science major, and I found a hole in all of the security on my computer, and I was able to get to porn. And I kept that secret until 2010 when Lori confronted
Wow.
me. And in 2010, she said, I need you to like tell me what's going on. And we just released a podcast episode about this, but what I said was the worst lie I've ever told is that I said it was all her fault. It had to do with, you know, anything I could do to blame someone else for the terrible things I was doing. Um, and that was convenient. So Lori, thankfully, uh, to her credit, said, I can't do this the same way. And we began to do things much differently in 2010. And just this past July, I celebrated 15 years clean and sober,
Hmm.
no porn, no masturbation. Um, and some of the other things that have gotten fixed is, I'm honest. I am no longer abusive. We've done a lot of work to not just help me stay like calm, like I'm not yelling, but like I'm calm, like I'm at peace and I can talk about what's going on without it like getting my heart rate up or any of those
Mm.
kind of things. So that's been helpful.
So what, first of all, thank you for being so honest, because I think I read on your LinkedIn post that I saw yesterday about the importance of the failure story, right? There's so much out there on social media, the smoke and mirrors, this sort of idyllic, perceived self that people put out there that ultimately just isn't true. And
Right.
people are constantly trying to aspire to this, and it just doesn't exist because ultimately we're all in the mixer all the time, just trying to do the best we can, and the best varies from day to day. So thank you very much for sharing honestly. So you talked about it being the band-aid, the plaster. What is your source fracture? What did you go back to understand, what it is that is what's the wound underneath the band-aid, basically.
Right. Um, Abandonment and neglect. One of the trainings that I've taken is called adverse childhood experiences. Um, and on that, obviously, physical abuse is on that list, but also physical neglect. And uh, my dad, who passed away a couple of months ago, very unhealthy person, drinking problem, had the pornography, had his own demons that he never dealt with.
Mm,
And as a result, um, I was raised in an environment where we did not have the language to describe what was going on, um, for ourselves, for each other. And, um, I knew my parents fought, but I knew they fought because I would come home and find something broken or a hole in the wall or whatever. And then when my parents divorced when I was around 11, um, my mom was trying to rebuild her life. And so I was on my own a lot. And um, some ways it's fun, and some ways it's pretty horrifying to not have a structure around you. So I think for me those and Charles, as time went on, one of the things that I found to be a trigger for me was Lori would just get up and leave the room, and she would leave the room, and there was a part of me that was just like, what did I do? What's wrong? How do I fix this? So um, that level of neglect or just fear of being left alone was to me a big part of the problem.
mm. It's very interesting. I was having a conversation with a friend just 3 days ago in Lisbon, um, and we talked about this sense of existential loneliness that sort of follows us round from childhood, where there's the sort of the decision of attachment versus authenticity, and having to shrink and change yourself based upon the environment you're in because you've got nowhere else to go and you have to be accepted to survive. And that attachment and just listening to what you're saying about going through that divorce and then having to be with your mum, rebuild her life, and it very much being a lot of time by yourself, that I can recognize why there is that void there that clearly that has moved into the pornography. And for other people it's drugs, and for me it was drugs and alcohol. It's also pornography. And actually, speaking for myself, that I notice, having stopped drinking over 4 years ago, because using drugs and alcohol, I was making very bad decisions. And what I've noticed, actually, that having given up alcohol, that the that I've not missed it at all since the day that I gave up. There's been no urge, but it has opened up my sort of perception to the other things that I have in my life that are unhealthy. And I would say pornography is probably the most unhealthy thing, the one that I feel like I have the least power over, I would say. And yeah, as I said earlier in the call, there have been periods of months where I've gone without it, and then suddenly I go into binge mode. So my question for you then, now with that in mind, is talk. You spoke about, was it bondage? Did you say the
Yeah.
bondage to the pornography is what does it look like getting off of it, weaning off of it? Because I tried ethical porn, for example. There's a Swedish porn producer called Erica Lust who makes films only with couples, and a lot of it is non-penetrative and I thought, well, if I move to that, it's a little bit like not going cold turkey. But then I found myself just sort of reverting back to the free stuff that you find online. So,
Yeah. Yeah. There's Gary Wilson. Gary Wilson did a lot of research into this. He had a website called Your Brain on Porn. He did live scans of the brain while people were using, and he found, different things going on. And so what he talks about is the chaser effect, which is uh, when we use, we're continuing that cycle of the dopamine hit along with all the other chemicals. It's almost like it lights up the brain like cocaine when you're masturbating and or not. And and then more recently, there's a woman here in the United States released a book called Dopamine Nation. Her name is Anna Lemke. And she talks about that dopamine. What happens is we get the signal, and that signal actually causes a dopamine lack in our body.
hmm,
And to get the real high, we then go and we use porn, we use whatever drug. And so um, it is that lack, that signal that kind of decreases our dopamine, and we want to fix it. So um, there's kind of like alcohol. There's one drink is too many and 1,000 isn't enough, just a little bit of using. And so for me, what I noticed as I came off of porn, Charles, was that uh, what used to not be an issue for me, like I could walk past uh, a magazine with bikini on the cover or whatever, and I wouldn't even notice it because my radar was way up here. And as it came down, man, I was like, holy smokes, there's a magazine right over there with it. It's just right there. It's just, my brain is like, it's just right there, Jay. Just look over there. It's just right there, and it gets a little neurotic at first. And then things begin to balance out again, and it becomes, okay, there's something over there, and I can go dig into it if I want to. There's a lot that's stuck in up here, and if I want to, I can go dig into it. And uh, so at first, it's like, oh wow, I can go there if I want to. What can I do that's healthier? What can I do that is um, more calming? And so they're like, I'm in the basement of my house. I have woods out behind me, and I can go out there and I can look at anything I want to and allow my eyes to see the birds and the trees and nature. And that helps me kind of feed that visual desire without feeding the dopamine in it. I don't know
yes.
if that answered your question, but that was kind of
It,
what
it did
happened
answer
with
my
me.
it did answer my question, yeah. Um, it's something I wanted to jump back to as well that you said earlier that you gave up porn and masturbation. And I wanted to
Yep.
understand the logic behind that as well, because there are different schools of thought here where some people believe, that some medical professionals advise you to sort of, clear the pipes every sort of couple of weeks or something like that. And if you are single and are not in a marriage with an active sex life, and I can speak from someone who's been in relationships where my sexual blueprint is different to the blueprint of the partner I'm with, and they desire sex much less than I do, for example. and how you channel that energy in those moments where it's coming on strong and you know you want to conserve it.
Right. Right. Um, so you're right. There are two different schools of this. There actually in the sex addiction space, there's one book that is the white book, and there's one book that is the green book. And I believe it's the green book that says masturbation is okay, and the white book is like, no, it's not. Um, again, going back to Gary Wilson, it is part of that maintaining the similar pattern. And for some guys, I have clients that all of their porn now is in their head, and masturbation is can feed that same process. And so it really is um, what my personal belief that it makes it easier to keep from going back to the other. If porn is the problem, it's uh, at least for me, porn was the thing that led to masturbation, and for some guys, masturbation led to porn. So
Hmm.
it's a bit of a tightrope. Our bodies do have nocturnal emissions as a way of our body clearing the pipes for us. Um, and I'm not an all or nothing. I do, one of the hardest things in helping addicts is creating a space for them to confess and an opportunity to call them higher. And there are definitely recovery groups that are like, yeah, none of us are really getting clean. None of us are really getting traction. So, welcome to the club. And there are other recovery groups, if you screw up one time, you're out. And I'm trying to be somewhere in the middle of, some of that is okay. And to some degree, it does become a discussion of what is your spouse okay with? What can you handle? And if you're going to walk down that path, recognizing that um, you might be opening that door again. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
I've
it's
met
an interesting.
alcoholics that work at bars, so it's,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
it's like that's going to be a tricky environment.
Yeah. Whereas I have absolutely no problem being around alcohol at all. I've just made a decision I'm not ever going to do it again. It was interesting jumping back to a point about the sort of chicken and the egg, porn leading to masturbation, masturbation leading to porn. For me, my experience of it is it's a situational sort of biochemical reaction in my body where I won't be turned on, but maybe I'll be working at my laptop. And because I'm in that situation, I'll be like, oh, well, I'm gonna go watch a bit, something like
Yeah,
that, and it's a total dopamine slot machine mentality of just,
yeah,
um, and so you spoke a little bit how it showed up in your relationship, how it manifested. Is disconnection with partners something that you witness when you and Laurie are dealing with your clients? And also, just a second part of that question, um, you talked about how much a partner is willing to sort of accommodate. And what if, have you seen the situation where a man hooks up with a woman who herself is also into watching porn as something that they do together?
right, right. And uh, so I guess I'll answer the second question first, kind of. I don't want to say that I'm anti-porn. What I am is helping the guy who realizes I can't keep doing this. Right? That was um, the first website I created is called Porn is Killing Me because for me, I was dying one image at a time to the life around me, to the world around me. Um, for other people. There are other people that can drink in a healthy way. There are other people that can use marijuana or whatever other legal substances in a healthy way. There are a bunch of people that can't, that it becomes just uh, they become obsessed, and that obsession leads to other negative outcomes.
Mm,
So I'm in no way saying, oh, everybody needs to quit. What I am saying is for the guy that finds himself unable to quit, unable to navigate in a healthy way, um, just like alcohol, there needs to be abstinence. There needs to be uh, other tools in place to help them with that.
yeah.
The disconnection piece, um, Charles, what I would say there is, to a degree, most of the disconnection is perceived disconnection. Because one of the things that I wanted from a, a woman in my life, uh, sadly came from television and movies and all the stories out there of "you complete me," right? That famous Jerry Maguire line, that if I had the right woman, then everything in my life would make sense. Everything would be easy. My needs would always be met. I wouldn't deal with frustration or disappointment or any of that, and uh, again, the podcast we just released, I have a tendency to get a little delusional. That delusion of finding the perfect person, that if they were in my life, I would never feel these negative emotions. When we finally can say that out loud, it's like, oh, now I see what I was doing. I was making it her responsibility to keep me feeling good all the time.
Mm.
Well, no human being has that capacity. Nobody can keep us filled and happy all the time.
No, and it's no one else's responsibility, is it? I think that's
Right. Yeah.
that's the point.
Anyway, that disconnection is perceived because, uh, again, if we were properly connected, I wouldn't feel this way, right? I wouldn't have this sense of upset and want to put it on her as, well, the reason why I'm upset is she's just not the right person for me, which, again, that's not me taking responsibility for my own emotional health capacity, whatever.
I mean, it's been a really fascinating conversation. So, I guess my next thing is that, a lot of addicts don't think that they have a problem.
Right.
And that is why whatever it is that they are, addicted to and moving away from, generally will hit rock bottom and get to a point. There are very few people that sort of get out in front of these things when you're really in the throes of addiction. Obviously, you have to hit that rock bottom point to then realize that you need help. So my final question is, if somebody feels like they are struggling with porn, however, at whatever level, you know, what resources can you recommend for people to reach out to? Obviously, you're in the United States. You have your project, but I guess on a more global scale, yeah, what would your advice be to someone who thinks they've got a problem and they're at that point where they're reaching out for help?
Yeah. That's a good question, Charles. First and foremost, I do work with guys, uh, Australia, England, Canada. I've worked with guys all over the world. At least I try to. Um, there's other organizations like 12-step programs that exist. Alcoholics Anonymous, you can walk in there as long as you are walking in saying, "Hey, I'm a porn addict and I need help." They're not going to be able to help you, but those spaces are about helping people who are addicted. And so I go to a 12-step meeting for myself. Other organizations like Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian-based organization that they talk about hurts, habits, and hangups. So they're okay with anybody walking in the door, and they want to help anybody that walks in. Um, the other one is it's run by Nate Larkin, the Pirate Monk, and it is they and I just cannot pull up the the name right now.
Well,
But I'll send it.
we'll link all of this below
Yeah.
so that anyone
Yeah.
watching can just click on those.
Yeah. And if you're going to go looking for a therapist, because that is the primary place where a lot of people go, is they go to therapists. Um, Even for the addict, they are dealing with a degree of trauma, and that trauma needs to be addressed properly. Um, so, uh, the Samson Society, that's the
We got
name.
there.
There we go. So the Samson Society is the one that Nate Larkin runs. They have free meetings that you can get to online. Anyway, going back to the therapist idea, you want a trauma trained, trauma aware therapist um, because, again, the porn is an outlet to a deeper problem. Um, just stopping the porn isn't going to fix things. It isn't going to fix things between you and your wife. Um, you know, or girlfriend. I've had guys that bring those issues to me. Um, so you want a therapist who really knows what they're talking about, somebody that is, uh, for example, I have a client, when he went to his therapist, he said, "This is what is going on for me. This is what I need to fix." And the therapist is like, "Well, your wife has the problem." And he's like, "No, I have the problem. It's impacting my relationship with my wife. I need to fix me." And he had a couple of therapists try to tell him that it was
Hmm.
something his wife needed to be okay with. And so be aware that kind of thing does happen. One of the primary things that Lori and I do, just to put a little bit of a thing out there for us, is we help rebuild trust. We help the relationship. Our primary focus is on the individual. For some of these cases, the relationship isn't going to survive. There's too many too many lies, too many breakdowns between them, and the relationship won't survive. But getting the individual healthy and then trying to re-engage the relationship is the pattern that we follow. We do not focus primarily on the relationship until both people are stable, because the relationship can be a big distraction from personal stability. Um, so keep those kind of elements in mind if you go looking for help, and really understand. I've worked with guys that are between 15 and 70 years old. I've worked with doctors, lawyers, pastors, um, blue collar guys, white collar guys, guys that have gone to prison for their method of acting out, um, guys that have lost their jobs. There is nothing unique about the fact that guys are stuck in porn. That kind of is all across the spectrum. Um, and what I my interaction with Steve Whittle was that I contemplated suicide in this process. I didn't go far down that path, but I thought about it. I thought, this is the only way I'm going to stop hurting my wife. I'm going to not have to continue to have this conversation forever. Uh, all of the other, like, shame and resistance to that process. Um, and if you're there, please get help, because there is something on the other side of this, right? I always thought this was the worst story I was ever going to tell, but this story has actually helped other men get their feet back underneath them. And somebody needs to hear your story, right? So that's the part that I really want to put out there, is there is a guy out there who's going to tell a story that's going to help another man.
But I believe that the power of this resource share and these conversations being put out there is far more than perhaps we can even comprehend at the moment, because as you said so poignantly in your post, that the failure story is the one that's really important because people can see that, it happens. Everybody ends up in this space at one point or another with whatever substance it is, no matter if you're the most successful guy in the world or not. So thank you so much for your time, Jay. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to link your project below. In fact, would you mind just signing off and just saying the name and how people can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk and share this message. If you want to find us, we are The Couple Cure. Um, we have a YouTube channel, The Couple Cure, uh, and you Jay at thecouplecure.com is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Um, for women, I'll pass you on to Lori, and Lori and the women can work out a conversation there. But I meet with men in groups and one-on-one. You don't have to do this alone, and it's a lot easier when you have other men that can share the load with you. So uh, please come get help. Thanks.
Great. Jay, thank you so much. We're going to link the Couple Cure channel here as well at the end. There'll be lots of things floating up on screen right about now. Hopefully, I'm going to be there. Subscribe there, all that stuff. We're getting used to it. We're getting used to YouTube. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing how the Couple Cure develops. And who knows, maybe if we manage to sail this boat across the Atlantic, you guys can come and wave stateside.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it.